Fraser Ellis is the member for Narunga. How are you, Fraser?
Going well, thank you. Thanks for having me once again.
Yes, we've been talking a fair bit leading up to the state election on the 19th of March, and indeed I think pre-poll opens on Monday. People have got the chance to vote right away from Monday.
People that are eligible to vote early do have the opportunity from Monday the 7th. The Narunga pre-poll booth, Goyder Street, Kadina, behind the ANZ Bank and directly diagonally across from my office. So if you're eligible to vote early, that's one option for you over the next 2 weeks.
Are there other locations on the peninsula or just at Kadina?
Just at Kadina at this stage. Those that are further south might, although it might be too late to apply for a postal vote now, but those further south might find that postal votes are a more convenient way of voting early. But in terms of pre-poll, it's just the one that we've got available.
Now, from memory as well, also the Electoral Commission have said if you find yourself in a sort of isolation situation closer to the poll, there is some way you can still get your vote in. I think people have been given something in the post with a QR code on it so that everyone gets their say.
Yep, I think provision's been made, hopefully, which will enable everyone to satisfy the requirements of compulsory voting in South Australia. So it'll be an interesting election with a number of seats, I suspect, that won't be determined on the night because of the declaration votes counted in the days following. But we shall see how it all transpires. And I know there were 3 by-elections in New South Wales relatively recently, and they had near on 45% voting early or postal. So we'll see how if that number replicates itself in South Australia.
Yeah, broadcasting as we do in several states. We're watching those by-elections in New South Wales. They did take several days for there to be a clearer result, and one took over a week, I think. So I guess you'd be hoping it won't be that close, but it's up to the voters, and indeed the voters will have a bit of an opportunity to hear from the candidates at the Maitland Golf Club tomorrow night, a forum hosted by Grain Producers SA.
Yep, I believe we have 7 candidates in this seat, and I believe a majority of them will be present there tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that and hearing from the farming community about the questions around the mining and ag debate, which I've taken a strong stance on over the course of this parliament, and the supply chain issues and mobile connectivity. There's a whole host of questions that hopefully farmers can put to candidates tomorrow night and hopefully get some answers.
I'll have to find myself a black and white striped shirt to play referee there. I'll be moderating the forum. So, Fraser, you be on your best behaviour. We'll see you. We always are. Now, speaking of mobile coverage and those other topics raised there, what improvements have there been in terms of black spots and connectivity for farmers across the peninsula?
Well, we've had a couple of towers built over the past 4 years, but I think ultimately we've sort of been a bit lacking. It would have been nice to have a few more towers awarded to this part of the world over the past 4 years, so I'm looking forward to going to bat for a few going forward. We've got a number of gaps. Corny Point, Tickera. I organised a meeting with Telstra and representatives of the Tickera community and Rowan Ramsey just the other day, and there's a number of gaps. So looking forward to going to bat for more towers in the next 4 years. It's such an important part of country life, and being able to call people when there's an emergency or information to share, it's a thing that's taken for granted in the city, but we need more of in the country.
Well, among other things, not just when it comes to emergencies or being able to run your farm business, there's also the apps like Mesonet, being able to keep track of weather conditions so you don't have spray drift concerns. There's an expectation farmers are able to connect wherever they are. So is there enough work going on, I guess, to make sure telcos maybe even collaborate, share towers or resources so that people can connect all the time?
Well, look, I think we would have benefited from a few more towers over the past 4 years. I would have like to think that we'd have a few more proposals that would stack up against the towers that have been erected elsewhere, but we get an opportunity going forward, and I think if we can elect a strong candidate that's willing to go into bat for us, we'll have the opportunity to fix a few of those gaps, and hopefully I can do that, and looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Well, on the health front, Labor's had a fair bit to say, especially down in the southeast, but they've rolled out some policy commitments, including one for the Keith Hospital, which you've sort of kind of latched onto and said, well, if parties are making commitments for the Keith Hospital, you'd like to see some longer term for Ardrossan. Yeah,
I'm a bit disappointed, Ricky, that both parties seem to have skipped over this seat, not given it a great deal of attention over the past few weeks of the election campaign, and particularly so with Labor have rolled out a number of health policies, and the southeast is a great example, but yet they seem to have missed the Yorke Peninsula, and they got as close as Peary but couldn't quite bring themselves to go further south. So 4 years ago we had secured funding for Ardrossan Hospital. That was 4 years of funding that is going to run out at the end of this financial year, and we have not had word yet whether that funding will A, continue, and B, be increased to cater for the increased costs that have come along with the COVID pandemic. So we need both major parties ideally to commit to continuing and increasing that funding so that a wonderful Ardrossan Community Hospital can continue to provide an invaluable service to that community over there. So a bit disappointing that both major parties have seemingly glossed over this seat, and we need to make sure that we make a bit of noise and ensure that we get our fair share on the peninsula going forward.
Well, I gather that there's not just yourself saying this, but there's some frustration from hospital administrators that it's hard for them to even budget for future years without that funding commitment locked in.
Yep, I know the Ardrossan Community Hospital and the wonderful staff that make sure that continues to thrive have written a number of letters to both parties that have not been responded to. So I wrote in April last year, and I've written again later in the year, November I think as well, and I only got the acknowledgement to that letter. I've not anything concrete saying we will continue it. So we need commitments from the parties, Ricky. We need them to come and offer certainties to the Ardrossan Hospital so that the biggest employer in the town, or one of the biggest employers in the town, can A, continue to employ people, and B, continue to treat people in a time of emergency.
Now, it's International Women's Day on the Tuesday, the 8th of March, and it's also been National Obesity Week, the federal government trying to release a new strategy to tackle obesity. It brings me to sport and facilities and facilities for female sports such as AFLW. You've got some active club grants that have been announced in the local electorate? We do, and some wonderful local clubs. I have to say, at the risk of jumping topics quickly, I'm really excited. We got a fair bit of funding to seal 3 different tennis courts in the Barunga West Council region. With Broughton, Butte, and Alford courts are all all on the way to being sealed, which will be a wonderful addition to that tennis community up there, and make sure that those games are played on a smooth court with an even bounce. So that'll be a wonderful thing. There's a number of other clubs we've done really well again in sport funding, sport grants, which we've done over the 4 years, and I'm looking forward to seeing those projects take shape and seeing how they have a positive impact on the community. Yeah, just on the sporting grants side, I know the state government, the Liberal Party, have been crowing about how they're looking to double, this is if they're re-elected, double the amount of to $200 what each family can claim per child for participation in sport. But as we do broadcast across several states, it's already at $200 in Victoria and New South Wales. Is the Liberal Party just playing catch-up with other states here? Regardless, I think it'll be a good initiative, and anything to encourage junior participation. I coach a junior basketball team in Kadina here, and we have 5 players, so we need to continue to build those numbers up. And Kadina, being a bigger town, generally does better at attracting players, so I'm sure those smaller communities would be even more appreciative. So anything, whether we're playing catch up or not, it would be a wonderful thing, I suspect, to continue to encourage kids to take up opportunities in sport across the community. Now, just lastly, speaking of, I guess, events and opportunities to participate in, there's a regional event fund grant round that's open. How have regional events coped on the Yorke Peninsula and your electorate regarding getting up and running again? I think it's been a really difficult time. I know that the wonderful Seafood on Spencer event, which is coming up very soon, have had to postpone their inaugural event twice. So this is the 3rd time lucky for that Port Broughton event, which is, as I said, coming up very soon, this early next month, I believe. So they've had to postpone that first event twice, and a number of other mooted events have had real difficulties getting off the ground. So as COVID restrictions, continue to relax and this grant funding comes in, hopefully we can get back to hosting some really exciting things. So Copper Coast Council have got the Flame Festival coming up, which should be really good, and then the Masters Games are returning in 2023. So the horizon's looking a lot more exciting than perhaps the past couple of years have looked for events, and the quicker we can get there, the better. All right, well, I look forward to hearing from locals and farmers in particular at this forum tomorrow at the Maitland Golf Club in the afternoon. We'll see you then, Fraser, and thanks for your time on Flow today. Looking forward to it, Ricky. Take it easy on me.